Previously on the Hot and Cold podcast.
I still haven't got that $25 by the way.
Oh no!
But...
The peanut butter and honey sandwich that I made was the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my entire life to this day. Hold on, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go over the rules again.
Me and Edward, we're like cold at doing all these flips and break dance.
We can go to the past and we can explore, we can make connections, we can do some healing.
3, 2, 1. The Keith Fletcher. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Man, go ahead.
I noticed that the last time we did this was just as COVID was breaking.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Because I posted that. I remember when you put it out and I put it on my Facebook feed, it was right the couple of days after the big shutdown.
Wow.
Remember that was the week of spring break?
Okay, so, and this is important. Was it the recording or the release of it?
The release of it.
The release of it. Because
Yeah.
we probably recorded before.
We did.
Then you release it probably right when it's going down.
Because we made no mention of it.
No, okay. Wow.
Yeah. We were a week and a half out from the shutdown.
Yeah.
And it never even dawned on us to bring it up.
I can't believe that. I can remember, the two kids, Will Martin and Christian Lyles, that were in the youth at the church. I had them in here, and they're real, I'm gonna say lazy, I guess, right? So they're looking on their phones like, oh, school got canceled for next week. I'm like, really? That's kind of a crazy thing. I couldn't believe that. And that was when it was all going down and we were slowly figuring out this is going to be a long ordeal.
I wonder if that's kind of our new 9/11, where you knew where you were when everything shut down. Because I was leaving to go to Kansas City for the Big 12 basketball tournament.
Okay.
And remember, all those basketball tournaments started slowly shutting down about that time.
Wow, yeah.
We were in spring break. And remember how Mark Cuban got the tweet and the NBA shutting down? That happened just a couple of days before. So it was on that the week of the basketball tournament. And when I say I was going, I had dropped my kids off at my mother-in-law's house, bags in the car, next stop DFW, when one of my coworkers sent me the text. He said, don't bother, turn around.
Yeah.
It's canceled.
Yeah, and here we are 8 months later, 9 months later. That's March. This is November, 11 minus 3, 8 months. Golly.
15 days to slow the spread.
Yeah.
Became 8 months now.
And nothing equals the stop of the spread. I mean, what I mean by that is, we had 6 weeks quarantine. That didn't really do anything. And then we opened up and nothing changed. And then like midsummer, we had these like spikes where, it was over 1,000 a day. I don't feel like we did anything different. And then the spikes went down, not doing anything different. And now they're back up. And I feel like we're all used to wearing masks and social distancing, and then they're still going up. It's the strangest.
Well, it is an airborne infectious disease.
Airborne.
So people are like, well, we'll do A, B, C, and X, Y, Z, and we'll shut it down.
Yeah.
We'll end it. No, we're not.
No, it's not.
No, stop it.
Yeah.
It's and I just tell you about my aunt who currently has it as we speak, and was visiting her brother who was having heart surgery in Houston. Careful. She's 77 or so, mask everywhere, this and that, very meticulous. Comes back, gets sick. Doctor says, "Did you do this?" And yeah, I was very careful. Finally figured out in the hotel, right in the elevator. Did you touch any buttons?
Yeah. Oh. And it's just like almost like ding.
Yeah.
That was it. The slightest little thing.
Of course, no, you never know, but that's probably as near as they can tell what it was.
Oh my God.
It's an airborne infectious disease. We're going to shut it down. No, we're not. It's just let it pass. Let us all get it and get immune, or let the vaccine come around. And once and for all, let's put it behind us.
Yeah. First off, anything I say right now, I'm not a doctor, and anything I say, you can prove otherwise. Maybe it's all so information, misinformation. But the few things that I feel like I read and feel, and maybe I'm looking for things to make it less deadly or less lethal, whatever, less dangerous. One, you don't see it as much, but I've read a few different articles on a certain type of blood type that, let's just say, only 40 to 50% of that type actually can infect it. Hey, that's still 40 to 50% that gets it, but that's excluding a whole lot of, and it's just a blood type. What does that, how does that even happen that other blood types get it and this blood type doesn't? And then the other, I wish that the government took a wholehearted approach to the building of an immune system. This is obviously something that has, at this point, affected people that are high risk. High risk are folks that are, a little bit more prone to viruses. And look, I'm not that good at taking care of myself. I do small things here and there, but I also believe that those small things make the difference.
Well, I'm not proud to say you're probably looking at someone who's considered high risk. And, between us, even at the church we go to, we know 20 or so people who got it and some high risk people there and who came out of it okay. So we know the mortality rate is good. And, we were talking about the role I have on the public what is it? The Public Health
and
Advisory Board here in Grand Prairie.
Thank you for doing that, by the way. I want to point that out because you do not live in my district. However, you are highly interested in being involved in your city, and that came open, and you were pushing to be a part of it, and I could have found no one better to someone to be interested and show up and learn and advise and help our city handle these types of things. So, well,
it's been interesting. It's been
and at this time, right? Like,
because you asked me about this. It was around Christmas. So before COVID, and none of that came about. And so I remember looking at the minutes of the previous meeting in November 2019, and it was like they're looking at West Nile virus, they're looking at cattle egrets, and the mayor's cycling through town. And it's like, it's a quarterly deal, 4 times a year. I'm sure I'll handle that.
Yeah, nothing.
And then COVID comes along. But I think what's been most interesting for me is being, it's a 9-member board, and there's 3 doctors on there.
Okay.
Dr. Wegman, Dr. Delana, both OB-GYNs, and then Dr. Abraham Chukwu, who is a doctor of preventative medicine.
Okay.
And hearing them talk about it, and just the patients they come across, their practice, it's pretty enlightening. And I think that's helped me not be as scared of it.
Okay.
I think their words are encouraging because,
they are doctors.
They are doctors, and there's what you hear. So in other words, what's out there in the media and what they're talking about, and what they're not talking about.
Yeah.
And then here's some real, because everyone's like, data, follow the science and the facts, follow the facts and the science. Well, those are hard to find, and it's hard to know who to trust.
Very hard to find.
Sitting in a room of doctors with no recording devices, shooting the breeze and being honest.
Wow.
That's where I've kind of gone, okay, let's not go out and try to get it, but I think we'll be okay. We keep hearing about, if you're under this age, there's a 99 point something % that you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Even if you're over 70, it's about a 92% chance you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging people to get it, but in our house, we're not going to stop life. And when Thanksgiving comes, our parents, our older relatives, we don't want them to get it. We don't want to be the one that transmits it to them. But, my deal is, what are your rules? And I'll play by those.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad. If you want a hug? Okay, here comes a hug.
Here it comes.
But I'm not going to give it to you until you ask for it,
Yeah. I like the idea of, the inspiration for this podcast was Joe Rogan, and I've become to a point where I watch his episodes all the time, and I wish I could get the type of guests he gets on. He gets virologists and doctors that, hey, they all have opinions as well, but it's a good educated approach. And the one I was listening to last night and today, he said, even with the vaccine, you got to reach herd immunity before this goes. This is a type of virus that it's not just going to go. Even when the vaccines are distributed, you're giving people COVID.
Right.
You're literally introducing COVID to their system. And so they're going to be symptomatic and spreading it during that short window. I'd like to know more science on that. I mean, the asymptomatic people are spreading it sort of, I guess, because they breathe. But then now we're literally going to give it to you so we know you have COVID. So do you have to quarantine for 14 days after they give you the vaccine? So much.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dummies like us can wrap our head around that. It's kind of like the flu, like the normal flu.
Yeah.
You got to kind of get a little of it to get past it.
Right.
Okay.
And then the thing you kind of touched on was being the animal driven, or it came from an animal.
Right.
And as it goes into a human body, generally, because we're not a doctor, but it's unfamiliar with it and it becomes weaker as it passes. So there's a general idea that this could get weaker with time and almost become nothing at all.
Right.
So that takes me back to, well, it did transfer from from an animal to human. So what keeps that from happening again, right?
Yeah. Our immune system beats it up a little bit each time. So as it's passed from one to the next, it gets a little more beat up. I thought one of the more interesting things I've learned in my last year on the Public Health Board, if you take the animal kingdom chart, the big A-frame chart of all the living things in the world, you know which member of the animal kingdom kills more people than any?
Humans.
Mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. West Nile.
Malaria. You think of all the things. Mosquitoes kill more people than any
smallest.
other. Yeah.
And you're not getting rid of them. Sorry.
Right. Exactly.
That's just simply not going to happen.
So, we obviously deal with West Nile here in Grand Prairie and all over North Texas. And we've had a good year for that, by the way. And also, there's Lyme disease out there from the ticks, and it's never ending. But
people have gotten onto me. I guess people will get onto you for anything, but that's why I always go back to attempting to take vitamin supplements, attempting to take care of your body, attempting to build immune systems. We are a gluttonous culture. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We've achieved success. Like we tell people all the time, we're like the top 15% richest. If you live in the United States, period, point blank, you're like the top 15 wealthiest person in the world, right? Like you're in the category with Bill Gates, like, and so we don't have these like bodies that are like fending and fighting for food and the ability to sleep comfortably at night. We have it. We just live and we take these drugs that like make us stare at our hands. Wait, that's a phone. I think I got a report. It's like 4 hours a day. I'm staring at my hand.
Yeah.
Point is, I hope this kind of helps to encourage that self-perspective, try to take care of ourselves a little bit better. I get to talk like this a lot because I'm 38 and skinny, right? Like I wonder what my attitude is in 30 years from now when I'm 68 and in high risk. Our mayor, whom I adore, he's very cautious, deservingly so. He's turning 70 this year. We were talking about it in one of our meetings, and he's like, look, I have a flu shot every year. I got a shingle shot. he's like, I do everything I can do to be healthy. And I'm like, that's awesome. Do I need to do that? Should I do that? And I'm not saying that I should or shouldn't, but these are, and am I an anti-vaxxer for asking? You know what I mean? I want to ask questions and learn more about it. And then I get beat back. Like, why would you ask questions? Well, I want to know.
Right. And you talk about the flu shot. My wife and kids get it every year.
Okay.
And one of them normally gets it. My wife normally gets it. I never get the flu shot, and I never get the flu. Why I've got it once, and probably since we've had kids, I think I've had it once. But I've had. I think my immune system got a workout when I was 11 or 12 years old. Speaking of unfortunate people around the world, my dad took us to Africa. My aunt and uncle were missionaries out there, and so we went to the country of Upper Volta, which you will not identify on a map now. It is now known as Burkina Faso.
Wow.
But in 1982, it was Upper Volta, and we went to the capital city of Ouagadougou, one of 3 capitals in the world to begin with the letter O, by the way.
This is a good memory, by the way, for 11 and these strange names and having it like...
Well, we were there for a month. It was a lifetime experience. But,
Awesome.
But I did come back with malaria.
Wow. At 11.
I spent my 12th birthday in the hospital with malaria. And my mom and dad actually tell the story of me better than me. There's only so much I remember.
Yeah.
I remember laying in a hospital bed. I remember talking to a lot of doctors. Apparently, my dad said the hematologists, the blood doctors from around the Southwest, they have these checkoffs they got to do, and the ones in med school have these checkoffs they have to have before they can get their degree. And I was like the only malaria case in the Southwest United States. So they were all coming to visit to look at my chart and ask me questions, same questions over and over again.
Medical specimen.
Yeah, exactly. But the time spent in Africa, we were not in a famine-ridden area. People had farms and were pretty well fed, and they had fruit stands along the road. I mean, this was not a desperate area. But
how does one contract malaria in Africa? Mosquitoes. Golly.
And I had a strain where it incubated in my liver, and I didn't get the symptoms until 6 months after we were back.
Wow.
So strange things can kill people all over the world.
That opens up things that I think a lot of people question, but I believe in. Oh man, I'll have to carefully say these words to make them right without I'm not a doctor is the main thing, right? I got the flu, I'm going to say 2012. But what happened was I got sick. I was living, my roommates were out of town for a week. So I got sicker. And then one night I'm shaking and all night long. It was rough. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I need to go to the doctor. So I called the doctor. Hey, I need to come see you. I'm feeling sick. So then I have to go the next day. So I'm sick for 3 or 4 days. It's bad enough to where I call the doctor. That's the 5th day. And the 6th day I go to the doctor. I'm already feeling, I wasn't shaking anymore. And he's like, yeah, you had the flu. And he's like, I can give you this medicine that'll help fight it, but it's already passed. Here's some stuff to clear up your sinuses or whatever. And so I literally got the flu, fought through it, and got out the other end without taking any antibiotics. It is my belief that my immune system will handle the flu. Mm-hmm. If I get it, it's going to be a
right
sniffle, day or 2, done. And I've had that a couple times since 2012. Every other year, I get that 1 or 2 days where I'm just like, whoa, something's going on here, and gone. And I like to think that, I hope that, golly, it's talking about it. I feel like I'm being foolish, but I'm not going to get COVID because I say I'll get it, but I'll be asymptomatic, which is actually one of the most dangerous things.
Right.
The asymptomatic portion of it. You've got what looks like 40% of the infected, this is a zombie movie, walking around that don't know they have it.
Giving it to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's only likely that this is going to be a herd immunity thing. If that's really a thing, And obviously it is because the testing is showing that you're asymptomatic. Now, I've not had any sniffles. I've not had any coughs. I've not had any congestion. So I hear asymptomatic's not truly asymptomatic. It's just very light symptoms, like I have a headache one day and that's it. But if that's the case, there's no way to stop that except for heavy testing on every corner. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think of all the masks, of the quarantines, of all the things that we can do to help stop this. If this is the case, asymptomatic people, 40% of those who have COVID are asymptomatic right now. Mass testing needs to be done yesterday. And I'm talking about May when we got out of the quarantine. And I understand technology and figuring out how to do that correctly is a major issue. And then apparently you can test positive and negative in one day with the current testing. So I guess we're still behind on that. But then starts the question, wait, we're 8 months into this. Our entire national government is focused on helping fix this thing, and we can't get a proper test done? Whatever. So I can't, I'm part of government. People want to go after the government sometimes. So, but I see where, hey, everybody's trying here. It's not like they're just like, no, we're spreading COVID. I don't believe that for one bit, but it is a thing that I wish, I feel like testing is the answer, right? If this is the case, or let it go, herd immunity. We're going to get it. It's going to happen. I've seen multiple doctors, multiple reports, and it's funny how this is a political thing, but left and right people saying herd immunity is coming. It's just a simple fact. And so why are we even held back now? All this talk, we forget that the original quarantine lockdown was to keep the hospitals from being overwhelmed.
Right.
So what are we now just wasted 10 minutes talking about it?
It was to restock on masks and gowns and things and get the hospitals prepared. And open up the hospital beds and get the people that were there.
Protocol.
Just kind of clear some beds and all that. And let's do that and prepare for this and get these big Navy ships full of hospital beds. Let's get those to port. And then not a one person lays down in that bed. No. The hospital beds go empty, and
hospitals are going out of business.
Exactly.
Because they won't accept anybody else.
Right. And then in the meantime, it's funny how many people like myself have had the healthiest year of my life. I've never.
Me too.
I've never.
No doubt about it.
Haven't gone to the doctor. I had an ear thing at one point, but beside my regular physical, hardly ever been sick.
I'm talking like breathing as well. Like I always get morning congestion, and not like sick in any way, shape, or form, but just you can feel a little bit clogginess or something. Not maybe once or twice, but like over 8 months, I mean, I've at least got sniffles, you know what I mean? Or at least got a sore trickle in my throat. Nothing, not even close. I had this is a off story, but we're having the time to tell it. Went to a concert and had a whiskey. We went to a bar, and the bar was really good. You wore your mask until you sit down at your table. The bar was full, but everybody was in their own section, separated. I had a whiskey. We were having a good time. Show wasn't for another 30 minutes. Had a second whiskey, feeling good, relaxed, ready to go watch Charlie Crockett. By the way, got a shirt on today. Kessler Theater. My friend, we go there all the time, so we know to look for the suite. It holds 8 people. It's not a suite. It's just a little section that you have your own chairs in the back, and it's a little bit elevated. So we got in the suite. The tables, it wasn't standing room. It was tables, and the tables were spread out. You have entrances on both sides, so they made it one way. And then they had waiters. So instead of getting up and go to the bar getting drinks. Okay, I'm telling you all that because I've had 2 whiskeys. I don't drink much anymore. I said, all right, let me get a beer and a whiskey. I got a 2-hour show. This will be sip on the beer, sip on the whiskey. I'm good. The whiskey was a little bit taller than this. It's a $9 whiskey, but that's the normal price for a fancy bar. and they've come out with I got whiskey on rocks, and this is what it was.
A nice, meaty, heavy pour.
And this goes back to another real quick. A guy, we were having a conversation about he almost got pulled over or almost got in a wreck, and he goes, "Well, the waitress overserved me," and we all got this big laugh about the waitress doesn't overserve you. You drank too much, right? I'm telling you, I got overserved when I ordered one whiskey because I want to be conservative, and I got that out. Okay, I say all that to say I was hungover the next day, and that was the worst I've felt, and during this entire process. And for the second day, I still had fatigue, and I thought, oh, I got the COVID, and it was just the hangover. It's the closest I've been to any type of sickness. And I'm glad that you say that, because it makes me feel like something's going on here. And we kind of alluded to the blood type.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know my blood type, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's O negative. And this is a thing that it's just it's a stat. No one's trying to analyze it. No one's trying to say that it's because of this certain thing, but 40 to 50% of people that are O negative don't get it. They come in contact with it, and it just doesn't react. It doesn't grow. It's just like any other particle that goes in your body, I guess.
And even the doctors I referenced earlier on the health board,
okay,
have mentioned the same thing. And they at least acknowledge it, that there's blood types that are least likely to get it or be symptomatic.
Do you know if those blood types are the same with other infectious?
I don't know. I mean, I think of, our youth pastor who you've had on the show. I mean, his wife was telling me, she's like, we were having this conversation about blood type. She's like, well, realize he went to this event where he apparently got it. He didn't feel bad and get tested positive for it till 3 days later. So she's like, I slept with a guy who was COVID positive for 3 nights, but I didn't get it. So what do I got that's so special?
Oh my goodness. It's so crazy. I mean, this is every scenario that we come across. Prayers and love to my fellow councilman. Dude's 84, strong as an ox, smart as a whip. I mean, like, this dude is just on it. He's 84, but you'd guess 62 only because he looks a little bit older, right? He's been on a ventilator for 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where how did that affect him more? It's just, and here we are talking about, I slept with the guy not me, sorry, for 3 days.
Yeah.
To someone who's COVID positive, didn't get it, and then somebody's in the hospital for 30 days.
And I mentioned my aunt who has it. We're worried about my uncle, about him getting it. And so far, so good.
Man. COVID-19 discussion. Well done, man.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. We could go back and forth, I guess, on the different things.
Well, I think it's good to talk about it as we hope that it's wrapping up.
Yeah.
And not because someone has a magic wand and they say they're going to get rid of it for us. I think it's just ready to run its course. And with the vaccines coming out, it looks like everything's falling into place.
I'm going to continue on that a little bit different approach. Because I'm just thinking about the things, the effects, and economy is one thing, psychological effects. I mean, dude, we've not had I just told you I went to a concert. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was rare. One of the bands I follow has been doing drive-in concerts. I told you I was inspired by Joe Rogan. Comedy shows are like the last thing that happened. Now, apparently in Houston, they've got a couple of shows they set up where it's like rapid testing at the door. You show up early, you get your rapid test, the Comedy Score's paying for it, or whatever is going on there. Maybe you got to show your certified list of that you prove negative. But I don't mind talking about myself. I'm a single dude. Loneliness is a thing. I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong, but it is simply part of my life. I'm often alone. Well, the way I combated that is I'm just a social butterfly. I like that's why I'm on the city council. I've been involved with so many things for so long. I just know people and I'm out there. Well, that's shut down. You can't do that. You can't go to a Chamber of Commerce luncheon and sit at a table and listen to a speaker talk about growing your business. Or you can't go to, speaking of city council, we're not going to have our Christmas dinner. You know, these councilmen aren't my best friends. I don't talk to them every day, but when we meet, we discuss these things, and it's all business all the time. Well, once a year we get this Christmas dinner. We get to sit down and have a drink and enjoy each other's company. That's not going to happen. All the charities like counseling centers that we need the most right now, United Charities that give money to people who need it because they're out of work, they raise funds year round. You can't have events. You can't have charity fundraisers. You can't get people together to provide that money and provide those resources for the damages that we're causing. Is that kind of, you get what I'm kind of
right? And now imagine being a kid.
Oh gosh.
Now imagine being a kid who doesn't make friends very easy.
Golly.
And that's when we had the chance to put our kids back in school, we're like, they're going back in school.
Yeah. They need the social.
They need all that. And
so
the instruction too.
Not only it's hard to make friends, but the people you would make friends are now getting used to making friends with their phone. So it's going to be even harder to make that friendship, because at least before, yeah, they were on their phones, but now they've been forced to be on their phones for 8 months. It's going to be a lot harder to break that cycle to make the friends. That's another thing that's not talked about. The education for the past years, all our kids are going to be behind. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I know the homeschool kids and the kids that have their parents super involved, that they may end up being better for it, right? But I guarantee you the vast majority of them.
I'll tell this story because I'm not going to mention a name, and I don't know his name if I could. But my daughter was having her virtual school. This is, I think, last spring more than this fall. No, I think it was actually this fall when school began. And there's this whole thing about spying on your kids and overhearing your teachers and what they're doing, or just leaving them alone. We're not big on, interfering with our kids' class and what are they teaching my kids anyway. It wasn't about that, but one of our kids has a problem with having questions and not really getting what's going on and not asking the questions. So when the teacher says, "Does anyone have any questions?" She's like, "Nope, everything's fine here." And so we were trying to just listen in, just to say, "Hey, ask her that question. You need help with this." So, and we didn't want to spy on the class or whatever, but we're just kind of waiting for her to ask her question because she needed help. And then, but one kid had a breakdown because they're all trying to look at a video and he can't get it up because he can't find the link, or it's not coming through. And do you have any help, or no? So this is a 4th grade kid, home alone, and mom or dad's working, no brothers or sisters, lunch is in the refrigerator, but he's there to go to school. God. And having a breakdown because he can't figure out technically how to follow along with the assignment, and was bawling. And you just, we're on the other side of the door hearing this, just kind of like, golly, what are they? And that's one example, one day. Oh, yeah. That has to be, and so beyond there's psychological damage. There's the educational damage that we had a conference with our daughter's teachers. We had a Zoom last week, and it's clear that everyone is behind.
Yeah,
way behind. Some of them way behind.
I mean, we can say this is, and you said, where were we on 9/11? I mean, this is becoming. And it's these and look, I say healthy. We're living our life. We're alive. I'm doing a podcast. TV is on. I mean, we get to do. We're not turning into zombies. People aren't dying on the streets. I get it, but this is an attack on our entire way of life.
Yep.
And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everybody is officially affected by COVID-19. Not just America, then worldwide, right?
And all those countries we were bragging about, oh, look at New Zealand, look at how they're, well, now they're having troubles again. Because you know what? It's a virus. And there's no magic wand. We keep thinking that, they got it done. How come we can't do that? Look what they're doing. Look they're the Swedes. Oh, look at it.
Yeah.
No, and then wait a few weeks or months, and it's kicking them in the butt too. So stop this thing of like, they got their act together. They're going to beat it. They're going to.
Yeah.
No, we're all going to get through this together, and it's just going to take some time.
Yeah, I like the opportunity to tell you about a book that I read, so I'm going to do that. Malcolm Gladwell wrote multiple books, and they're all newer books. He has a great way of looking at things, but it's called Outliers. And without getting to it, the general idea was like that he looked at all the NHL hockey players. Well, 70-80% of them were born between like March 1st and May 30th. And apparently you go back to the entry into youth hockey, that's the cutoff date. So the kids got the extra year, or they started earlier. I mean, don't let me mess that up, but they've got 6 months to a year longer of training and playing at a high level. The Beatles, when they were still in the UK, they got this gig at a bar where they played 7 days a week for 8 hours. So, that applies to that 10,000 hour rule, where these guys played together for a year for 8 hours a day. So that's why when you listen to a Beatles song, it's just like so finely tuned and perfect. All that was based on this whole idea of this town in Italy that has zero sickness. And it's like that was still unknown where that came from, because that's where he started trying to figure this out from, and they never got a reason of why that is. So I wonder how that town in Italy is doing, I guess is what my point is. A great book about there's magic. Hard work is a serious thing, but there's also magic about circumstance and putting yourself in the right situation. So
are we ready to talk about cricket?
Yeah, man. Great transition. Thank you for bringing that up.
Because I was thinking Europeans, cricket, and I told Cole that I was going to flip the tables on him, because I became interested by this when it came out of the news. Of course, very out of the blue for me. I know you knew some more about it, but that the Air Hogs Stadium is going to be turned into a cricket stadium, and it's going to be this international hub of cricket. And I just thought, what? The first thing I thought was, we found our niche. Yeah. Because I've always been fascinated when I go to Oklahoma City. Have you been there the last 5 to 10 years, by the way?
Oklahoma City?
Uh-huh.
No, I can't say I've been there in 20 plus years. Okay.
Well, if you've been there the last 5 to 10 years, once you go up I-35 and you cross over the Oklahoma River, you see this, further up on I-40 is the city, the downtown, but this on the river, the Oklahoma River, is this big bustling, there's big, beautiful buildings, and you come to find out that's the boathouse, and now it's the boathouse district, and they just decided 10 years ago or so, you know what? We're going to make this a boathouse district and build a state-of-the-art boathouse and make this the most world-class place for rowing in the world. And this will become the Olympic training center for the U.S. men's and women's rowing teams. And that's what they did.
Wow.
So the U.S. men's and women's Olympic rowing teams train in Oklahoma City. This boathouse district has kind of taken on a life of its own. And the whole time I'm thinking, golly, what's Grand Prairie's? What could be our niche?
Yeah.
And then I know somewhere in I think it's Charleston, South Carolina, every year they do this big deal in downtown for pole vault.
Oh, really?
They clear the streets out. They build this stage and all these world-class level pole vaulters come and it's a riot. They build, all the bars are open. They put bleachers up in a non-COVID year,
Wow.
and it's a riot. And then they put up the lights. It's all night long, and pole vaulting happens in the middle of a downtown street. And I just, the more I thought about it, it's like, boy, Grand Prairie needs a gig.
Yeah.
We need a sport we can just kind of make our own. So when I saw the cricket deal, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
We're the cricket home.
Man, I can talk a lot about this because, like anybody in the last couple of days, it's steamrolled the information, and what's important to note about that is, I've known about this for 2 years. So people understand executive session. When you're dealing with private entities, a city is dealing with a private entity. You have to keep it on wraps. You can't discuss it until it's on the agenda. That's it's law, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I were to speak with you about cricket prior to this being on the agenda, I could be sued. The whole city could be sued. It becomes very nasty. The city of Grand Prairie has so much stuff going on that we called our project name for it was Jiminy. We called it, well, what's going on with Jiminy? So we didn't say cricket.
Right.
And we had a bunch of other names for different stuff. It was pretty cool. But Mayor had his state of the city address, and he's like, we got 4 things that are so amazing going to happen. And I've got 80% this one's going to happen, 50% this one's going to happen, 20% this one's going to happen, 10%, whatever it is. Anyway, that was the 80%. We're pretty sure that was the way it was happening. We felt comfortable about it going on. And it's so crazy. Like you, I knew it was coming up on our agenda. We were discussing the lease and what was going to work and how all this was going to come together. But it's just these executive session things that I've finally trained myself to not talk about. Then it's on the agenda. Then Dallas Morning News sees it's on the agenda, and they write a whole report to release the day of our vote, which is great and fine. And so Dallas, as we're voting on it, the citizens are learning about it. Then the next day, this is Wednesday, it's said that we did approve it. So then by Wednesday and Thursday, I'm fielding questions left and right. Luckily, I know a lot of the answers, but I had to go to staff and have them build up like a talking point on a lot of things just to make sure. I mean, there's a lot going on, and so you don't want to misstate anything. But I would, so Major League Cricket. I mean, this is not like, hey, we're going to play minor league cricket or like, and so let's take a step back to there. Baseball was there for 12 years. I'm a big baseball fan. I'm so happy we had minor league baseball in Grand Prairie. The reality of it is it was the worst business in town.
Right.
And, Frisco does pretty well, but they also get a $250,000 check from the Rangers every year. You know what I mean? Like I said, they do well. They have people show up. It's in a good area, but they're funded by a major league multi-million-dollar team, and man, it's so cool, such a fun, entertaining thing to do. But it was a money pit. Okay, so Donnie Nelson is the owner of the Airhogs. He bought the team, and he actually is expanding independent league baseball, and that's kind of a project of his. But he saw it as a money pit as well, and so he was ready to make a move. He worked with the cricket guys, and remember, he's an international guy. Remember, he got the Chinese players to come over.
That's right.
And he helped find Dirk, and so international is on Donnie's list. So, as we're making these negotiations and talking about cricket, he's like, no, so we have a relationship with him. So he's telling us how awesome of a deal cricket is. And it's just amazing how your mind just kind of opens up to this brand new idea. Second most popular sport in the world. You would never, first off, we assume football is, and I mean American football, right? Like football, we love football. That's all we care about. But then you realize, oh, no, you're right. Yeah, soccer's worldwide. So then it's American football. No, it's cricket. I can even tell you what the third.
I know it's big in India, South Africa, Europe, certainly.
Well, you you just mentioned about a third of the world, right?
Right.
Like those three,
Right.
At least a third of the world.
And we were talking, at first I thought, I was like, well, that's not an Olympic sport. And I couldn't help but wonder why. So I poked around, and it's the length of the games. If you know anything about cricket, you know it can take 3 or 4 or 5 days to play.
Yeah. Or a couple hours, but
Or a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But a lot of them go, you can't predict. And in the Olympics, you need, in any team sport in the Olympics, it's a tournament format. So it's bracketed teams, and you kind of work your way. And so there needs to be some consistency,
Yeah.
and it needs to be television friendly. And cricket is not the sport for that. So that's why they are looking to make some changes to shorten the game for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles.
2028.
Or there is a movement out there, from what I've read, to try to shorten the game. And so I think
It's like the shot clock in basketball, right?
I think they're learning. You got your hardcore cricketers who don't want any changes.
Don't touch it.
Just like there are in every sport, leave out. No. But they are trying to do some things to quicken the games, to shorten it. And I think that would, if you make it more television friendly, what a time to be a new student of cricket.
No doubt about it. So I learned mostly from a 2.5-minute video on YouTube. One of our staff members sent it out. Hey, if you want a quick tutorial, and it was a good tutorial. It's a very simple game. You think it's complicated, and it's because you're comparing it to baseball. By the way, baseball is a untimed sport.
True.
And you have any games that go late into the night, 5-6 hour games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, same thing. They've learned to shorten that up as well.
Right.
And so it's only natural to spread it to the masses, which everybody wants their game spread to the masses, to shorten it up. So it will be the home of U.S. men's cricket. So it is going to be a 6-league major American league. So Major League Cricket, MLC, just like Major League Soccer or Major League Baseball. It'll be starting off 6 teams in the U.S. that will play in a league. Golly, I don't even know the dates and the times of how they do that. But then in addition to the home of the U.S. men's team. So what's really cool about that is this U.S. men's team will travel to India or travel to wherever to play. But then Indian teams will come to Air Hog Stadium, which it'll have a new name probably in a few months, I imagine. And that's when you get the diehard cricket players that have been watching their team in India for the last 20 years since they moved here. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to be in their backyard or in their state. I mean, even in their country. I can imagine somebody that lives in LA wanting to come to Grand Prairie to see their Indian. So instead of flying to India to see them, they just have to fly to Texas within the country.
Right.
$300 or $400, maybe $500 round trip plane ticket, as opposed to a $1,500 or $2,500 plane ticket to India.
Good point.
And so you're going to have 8,000 to 10,000 people showing up. I don't know how often the U.S. men's team is going to play, but I can imagine they're going to have 4 or 5 home games minimum.
Right.
So that alone far surpasses anything the Air Hogs were doing. They're going to have practice fields. Now, I don't think the practice fields will be for you and I to go up there and play, but that'll allow for hopefully city leagues, adult leagues, and then building the skill for newly drafted players, like almost like a minor league type deal. So cricket is going to be successful because it's cricket and it's the second most popular sport in the world. And that stat alone, you don't know. And that you realize, okay, then you start thinking, oh, not such a bad idea. But what I've heard from people is, everybody's going to do this, but why is the city spending $1.3 million to bring cricket here? I've never heard of cricket, blah, blah, blah. So we satisfied, you've never heard of cricket, but you're going to hear of cricket. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to point out, as far as the city's involvement, And what also makes this it's not us pushing for something, right? This is the group of investors. And let me tell you, this group of investors ain't no joke. These are guys that are loaded and highly involved in all kinds of sports.
I would imagine.
And they're putting $10 million into it. It's not
Wow.
It's not a $2 million project that the city's putting 1.5 into it or whatever. So the number 1.3 million. Okay. We went to the voters in, let's say 2007, 2008, and said, we want to build a baseball stadium. We want to build X. We want to build Z. And I forget what was involved in that 3-thing package. And the voters overwhelmingly, 85%, said yes. So this tax, quarter-cent sales tax, is dedicated specifically to that entity. Okay. So that's over with. We're no longer, that tax has moved on to something else. But we have $1.5 million sitting in a bank account that we cannot spend elsewhere. I can't give it to my police. I can't give it to my streets. I can't do anything except has to be with that stadium. So not only we're not even spending the 1.5. We're spending the 1.3 that's already earmarked and approved to go into that stadium. $800,000 of that is going to be paid back in additional rent payments, meaning they're paying $20,000 a month to rent that from us. So we're automatically getting, it's a city asset. We're getting rent. We're automatically, whatever investment you put in, you're getting $20K a month back. But then on top of that, it's going to pay back $800,000.
Right.
The additional $500,000 to make it 1.3 is in direct stadium improvements like concessions, suites. There's 16 suites out there. The city will have one for themselves. I mean, that's just natural. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be 15 other suites where people are going to pay high dollars renting those things out. Especially if you start thinking about the people flying in to see their team from India.
Right.
I mean, that happened with the Air Hogs. People rented that out. I mean, we had more people in suites than we had in the stands,
right? Just
because it was air conditioned and it was kind of nice to do that. Mm-hmm. So you start looking at all these aspects of it. In my mind, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and more like, this is really a big deal. This is not like starting a minor league baseball, independent league baseball team. As cool as that was, mm-hmm. I think this is turning out to be, I'm learning that it will turn out to be far larger than anything we could have imagined. And what I'm explaining to you is what I'm trying to imagine. By the way, Atlanta, Florida, and San Francisco, I know, are three of the 6 teams. So Grand Prairie, which will probably be Dallas. I don't know the other 2 right now. And then the other thing I want to talk about, I'm kind of interested in what we do. We've got a lot of Air Hogs paraphernalia. There's statues of like servicemen that were the Air Hog. You know, that was what that came from. Was we have a aviator background history in Grand Prairie.
The old naval, the naval base.
Yeah, and so the Air Hog was the guy who hogged all the airspace, and that's where all that came from. So there's all kinds of Air Hog paraphernalia stuff out there that I think we'll end up donating it to the nonprofits who we need to, and then auction it off. Because I was telling staff, I was like, I'll pay for some of it. I'd like to have some of that. Yeah, I remember back in 2008 through 20, we had a minor league baseball team. So women's too, by the way.
Right.
This is women will have their own cricket league as well. So it's U.S. men and women's cricket. I'm pumped, man. I mean, I it's amazing, like I said, how since I'm used to keeping it under wraps and this is coming to fruition, you're not used to getting the reaction that you did. And I got such a reaction these last 3 or 4 days. So many questions, more than I've ever had in any other decision we've made in my short time on council.
And if I can be sort of a voice of the city, of a pedestrian citizen, I don't know that we're ready to get excited about the game of cricket yet.
Yeah.
But it's neat that the city has found an identity.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Oklahoma City thing with rowing.
Yeah.
Kind of like, Charleston, South Carolina with pole vault. I mean, now there's an identity that we can kind of wrap our brain around and say, you know what, that's ours.
Man, that's a good point. I saw a few comments about nobody went to baseball. What makes you think they're going to go to cricket? And unfortunately, that's not necessarily. It's so tough to say, but it's pretty accurate.
We got a Major League Baseball team 15 minutes away.
Yeah,
it's a different thing.
Yeah,
you got to think differently.
And it's likely that not many Grand Prairians will go at first.
Yep.
I think that'll definitely grow because when you go to the Air Hall game previously and nobody was there, it didn't inspire you to go back. So when you decide to go to a cricket game and there's, let's just say 1,000 people there, because there were maybe 200 at the Air Hall games. Let's say we get 1,000 people there. Suddenly you're like, oh, this is a cool atmosphere. I want to come back. So you're a return customer, and then you're probably going to see some of it on television. If this is the American Major League Cricket organization, you're going to have major sports coverage. It's only natural, right?
Right.
Fox Sports, ESPN at least will have a blurb on it. Hey, Dallas cricket team beats San Francisco cricket team 27 to, I don't even know what the scores, common scores are.
But let's not forget, we didn't get Lone Star Park because Grand Prairie was a big horse thoroughbred raising territory or whatever. But and it's not just Grand Prairie citizens who go there.
Yeah.
But it's a great identity for the city that we have the big horse track.
That's a great point. So I'm glad you brought that up, because everybody, Grand Prairians and those outside Grand Prairie asked me about the continued development out there. So the warehouses went in across the street. That could have been retail. You could have put some restaurants, or why did you put a hotel there? It's like, you got to go through the whole explanation. Like, look, the city didn't put anything there. That's a private entity who bought that land, had every right to build that there. And remember, that's in floodplain. And so saying all that, we have made that whole area what's called a opportunity zone. We had to get the governor to declare that. So what that does is your return on investment is not taxed nearly as much. Obviously taxed a little bit. But let's just say you get taxed 50% on this type of investment. Well, it's like 2% or something like that. It would encourage investors to go in and do this. Okay. So cricket has a U.S. national and Indian teams come in. Guess what? They're going to need a place to stay. Mm-hmm. You're talking the team plus backups plus coaches plus their traveling
staff.
Team.
Yeah.
You're talking a hotel full of people. And that doesn't include the fans that are coming to watch it, right? So the desire for hotels and restaurants that people have been wanting in that area are now. Did we think that about baseball? It'd be hard when I'm thinking of minor league baseball team. It's hard to think that they're going to be demanding. I mean, these are guys that make $300 a month. Mm-hmm. This is going to be an international, major league professional sports team that's going to be paid way more than $300 a month, regardless of what it is. So I just imagine these guys and their families, they're going to need a place to stay, and they're going to need a restaurant to go to. The concert venues across the street, you can go across and gamble at the horse track. Maybe this is a growth spurt for this, our old entertainment area that we've been working on for 20 years now. Right.
It's a neat identity to have. It's unique. No other town in Texas or the Southwest will have this, and I think that's a very unique identity for Grand Prairie.
I'm glad you stuck with that word, identity and niche and our thing, Grand Prairie's thing. And I love the idea, like you said, about the pole vaulting down Main Street. Main Street's real big to me in Grand Prairie, and I always think, what can we get to get people here? That'd be cool to have a pole vaulting. By the way, that's 180. It's a state highway, so there's a whole nother element in getting that done. But
or find our other shot put.
Yeah, downtown shot put.
Discus. Find another track and field specialty.
And it can be me and you going out and doing that. But the cool thing about that is you've got professionals coming in,
right? Legit
people, and it could be me at 8 a.m. in the morning, and then when you get closer to noon or 2, when everybody's there, you have the professionals line up and do it. That's such a cool deal.
Because track and field is one of those where it's a track. I'm sort of a track and field nerd, but I know that a lot of the athletes feel like it doesn't get displayed right. It kind of things get lost on the track. You got 5 things going on at once, and so you really need a good track announcer to let you know, hey, the high jump is down to 3. The bar's at 7 feet 2 inches. This 3. You need someone to kind of direct your eyes around the track, and so when it's not an Olympic year, those shot putters and pole vaulters and high jumpers, they like kind of having their own specialty put on a pedestal.
There's no doubt about it. Watching Olympic sports like track and field, and I like Olympic hockey. It's so much more like fast paced. There's no selling. They're not selling you advertisements. It's like line up and go. When the puck stops, we can pick it up and drop it again, ready to roll. You know what I mean? And and I've never watched track and field except for the Olympic aspect of it. And you know what? They've got good announcers, and it's quick, live, ready to roll, as opposed to trying to say or somebody doesn't know what they're doing. I say don't know what they're doing, but a less experienced broadcaster teaching it to you.
So there's our conversation on cricket.
Well, and I'm glad that I wanted to have you on because we both can talk about just about anything, but perfect timing with the cricket.
Yeah.
And I hope that somebody, one of my 7 listeners, picks up some information about cricket. He gets excited about it, man, because I really think this is going to be a good deal. And I wasn't positive about it until, I myself, who was a decision maker on it, have learned more and more about the sport itself. By the way, YouTube, how to play cricket, something like that, real similar. It's like a 2.5 minute video. Taught me the whole thing. I'm gonna say it. The bowler is like your pitcher in baseball, and there's what's called wickets, and these wickets are on stands. And the idea of the bowler or pitcher is to knock these wickets off. And if they knock the wickets off, it's an out. That batter's gone. Okay. Well, the batter, there's no strike zone. The batter just has to keep the ball from hitting the wickets. So the batter hits the ball, and when he hits it, he runs to where the pitcher pitches from, basically, and that's a run. And there's actually 2 guys. So that gets a little confusing of why they use 2 guys, but if they have time to run back and forth multiple times, that's multiple runs. Okay. The next thing is if you hit the ball and it goes to the wall, that's like automatic 4 runs, because the wall, potentially it keeps going past the wall. If there's not a wall there, keeps going past it, and so they don't play it. It's 4 runs. If you hit it out of the stadium, home run in baseball, that's 6 runs. So you keep batting until you're out. And you could hit 10 home runs. You don't hit the home run and then you just keep hitting. You could hit 10 home runs, have 60 points, and every batter bats once. Then you swap sides. The other team has every batter bat once, then game over, which is the reason games can go 3 or 4 days. If a guy's sitting there hitting home runs all day long, and then the other team does the same thing to catch up, they're hitting home run shots. So did you understand that?
I did.
And I'm not.
You ought to put the link to that video in the comment section of this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I followed along with it. I'm nerdy enough to where, I'll watch a little of something. I'm old enough to where I've watched rugby. I've watched Australian rules football once upon a time. I've watched cricket.
Yeah.
Just enough to kind of go, what's going on here? And then, okay, I don't know names. I don't know teams. But I'll if there's nothing else on, I'll watch it for 20 minutes.
Yeah, just like pop flies in baseball, by the way, the fielders are all spread out in the field.
Right.
And I don't think there's really any strategy to that because you don't know where he's going to hit the ball. I think obviously the guys are more likely to be in front of him, right, because you're hitting the ball in one direction. But no gloves. They just got to, if they catch the ball, that's the out.
Right.
Okay, one more topic. We're almost lined up anyway. I asked you if we could talk about this to make sure there's an appropriate man. I found Calvary going on almost 3 years ago. I was looking for a church, local church, to be involved with. I wasn't a member of Calvary before. I think I'd gone maybe once, just popped in, and fell in love with Brian. I was lucky. Brian's real good at, I'm going to say...
Brian Lovelace, our pastor, for those who don't know him.
Brian Lovelace. What he did with me, and I think what he does with people who want to serve and lead, is he'll invest some time with you to it's almost like deputizing, I think, right? Like he spent the time with me for my seeking of spirituality. He helped me to do that. I was lucky enough. He's a weightlifter, so we spent about 6 months lifting weights 3 times a week. And so through that, I made this point to him. It's kind of a bad thing. My entire involvement with Calvary has been a battle to move. Brian has done a wonderful job, and he still does. He has a great message, well prepared, well thought out. The guy's really, really smart, and when he presents a message / sermon, he's reaching people, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So this has been a battle to. We're in an old part of town. Attendance is not good. We have a humongous campus. And Brian, I love his metaphor. For those who are not Christians, there's a character, David, who slung Goliath. You've probably heard that story before. David killing the giant. David, the young shepherd boy, killing a giant. So it's David later became king. But he was a young kid then. Saul was the king at that time. Saul, when they decided to give David a shot to kill Goliath, the king gives David, the shepherd boy, his armor. And David puts on this like high quality, heavy armor. And he's just like a little shrimpy kid. And he's like, I can't, this will slow me down. There's no way I could wear this. You can imagine the little kid dragging along. You can't even see him. All you can see is the outlay of the armor. And he said, I can't use this armor. And Brian made the metaphor of like, I'm preaching to people in 2020 using 1950 methods and control. And hey, the gospel's the gospel. Mm-hmm. The Bible's the Bible. There's an argument that shouldn't affect people, but we are different. People are different than what they were in 1950. It's just the way it is.
Right. And
so he made of shedding this old armor. And Calvary is a amazing church, great history, but it's a 7-acre campus. So almost immediately, Brian was talking to me about the ability to change the campus, go to a new place. So Keith, you had a more or less front row view to a lot of that. You're a trustee currently. Mm-hmm. Were you a trustee during this whole? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I thought. We have some new trustees now, so I want to make sure that you were. Talk a little bit on that. I'm real curious from your perspective because you have the congregation, me. Mm-hmm. Well, you have volunteers, you have people that teach Sunday school classes who are a little bit more involved. And then you have the trustees that church is run by trustees. The pastor we take direction from the pastor and it's all relative on how strong that pastor's influence is, but the trustee is a group of people, like a corporation has a board of directors that does the business side of things.
It came about probably 2017, I think, is when a preacher really, and what we're talking about, just to kind of, if we've lost anyone, Calvary recently, the first or second week of November, voted to sell our property, our nearly 7.5 acre property and buildings, to the city. And we will purchase a 5 acre tract of land on South Robinson Road, near Park Hill Park, kind of near almost where Robinson Road dead ends to Camp Wisdom.
Yeah.
And we will build a new church. And Calvary has been around since 1934. My wife is a third generation member. We were married there in 2005. 2005.
Wow.
And that's how I was introduced to the church. And so, it took a few years. That was my wife's church. It's my in-laws' church. I was coming along.
Yeah.
And I knew Brian was a great communicator. And I was one of those guys, if you show up to church and you listen and you're pretty generally kind of stick to the guidelines, you're okay. And, I'll never be a Ned Flanders kind of that's not for, but after listening to the sermons,
Yeah.
it took a while before I finally felt ready. And this was, we're talking 2016.
Yeah, so 10 years
before I felt that I was ready to start living the life that's been preached to me instead of just listening to it.
Yeah, I like if you don't mind, I'll never forget this, and it's one of my favorite verses, but it's like, I saw this T-shirt. It was a Christian T-shirt, and it says, "If I'm real good, I'll go to heaven." And then the ticket stub has "not," and I always thought that was cool because it was kind of a kid novelty thing. Not, we always say that. And then it has the deal, through faith, you've been by grace you've been saved through faith, not works, right? Like, and that's kind of that thing you were saying just now. If I go to church and listen to the sermon and generally kind of just
check the boxes, give it a little something when the tray goes by.
I'll be good.
But no, the churches in general, and ours especially, attendance started, was slowly dwindling, and not just people not going to church, but finding other churches that are. We kind of went through the mega church, stretch there, and lost people for various reasons. We hear from people why they stopped going to Calvary, why they went somewhere else, and it's all across the board.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, a 7.5 acre campus designed really for between 800 to 1,000 members.
Yeah.
Now, by 2017, we were at 300 to 350, not using a lot of the buildings.
Yeah, and that kept going down probably.
Right.
I mean,
and these were buildings, many of them that were built were open in the 1950s and 60s.
yeah. Foundation alone, then plumbing. I can only imagine the costs. I mean, think about, golly, air conditioning, HVAC units.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have a motor in the auditorium, our main church, that is original to the building, which was dedicated in 1948, and
Wow.
or 1958. I think it's 58. Dedicated in 1958. It's the original motor, so we pray over that thing every Sunday in summer. That thing alone, because if that thing goes out, I mean, it's $100,000.
Jeez.
And when you are putting more money into taking care of the buildings and the upkeep, then you're really doing church just to be in real estate. It's all this money that could be going towards better things.
Yeah.
You're having to put in your buildings just to keep them upright.
Yeah.
So, we knew that it was, I knew just as a member, I mean, there's got to be this has a shelf life. It ain't going to last forever. And then by 2017, and I was a trustee and preacher kind of laid out that, we need to find a new home. We need to relaunch, rebrand, all that. And kind of, and that may not be here. And we kind of left it on the table. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe we just sell the south side of the property that goes up to Main Street. Maybe we just redo this.
Yeah.
Let's look at this. So it took a while, and it's not. It's you would think that it's as easy as, okay, it's the same church. We're just building a new building right down there, so everything's great, right? But boy, people are really connected, and I live with a few of them who are really connected, and it's hard.
Yeah, you can only imagine, traditions in life that you stick to.
Yeah,
and religion is probably the strongest of them all.
Mm-hmm.
Going to your grandma's house for Thanksgiving ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going celebrating your birthday at Saltgrass Steakhouse every year ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the church you go to is always there.
Yep.
And especially from the 30s, 40s, and 50s up to now, long-term church buildings, it's just if you haven't gone to church in 5 years, that's still your church, right? That's still, people say, oh, I go to that church. It's funny, as a member that goes and is volunteers and is involved all the time, I come across people as like, oh, I go to Calvary. And I'm like, and I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody, but it's kind of, it happens all the time. It's like, I'm there 3 times a week, in every service or whatever, and I've never seen you before in my life, right?
Right.
But that's what I mean is like that draw, that commitment to that is yours.
Yep.
From somebody who's not been there in 5 years. Imagine the people that are there.
And we had to hear it from a lot of people. My family helped build that church.
Yeah.
My family did build that church, and it's tough. But the simple economics of it, dwindling membership, dwindling giving, rising cost, and
I'm less likely to give if I know that it's going to repair an air conditioning unit in the back room that nobody uses, right?
Right.
Why am I giving to this? And look, you shouldn't question, and giving is to give, not to question where it goes.
Right.
But that money can be spent in so many other places, especially if you're dedicated and committed to spreading the gospel and living a life like Christ did, or attempting to.
And take a new incoming family. They've just moved to Grand Prairie. They're looking for a church like you were a few years ago. And they visit. They love the preacher. They love the people. But it's like, well, will this still be here in 5 or 10 years?
You just don't know.
And, so do we want, when you're, if you're trying to gain new members, if you're trying to attract new members, there needs to be a more rosy future ahead, instead of, well, this will be, you just, it's hard to, and it's so tricky to talk about.
Yeah.
It's that church was never going to last forever. The buildings were never going to last. Something's got to go. What are we going to do? Knock it down and build a new one? That's a ton of money. There's First Baptist in Dallas. Well, they put over $100 million
Yikes.
into rebuilding and refurbishing everything around there.
$100 million.
They got some people that can do that and help them do that for them.
They wrote checks.
We're not gonna. That's not gonna happen here.
No.
So what are our alternatives? Well, right now, here's what we could get for the property. Here's a patch of land we can buy and build on, and hope that we're not, that we can do it on budget and be debt free. So
we can cease to exist.
Or there can be a day, and that's where, as a trustee, and our friend Brian Anderson talked about it as well, we just knew is there going to be a day where we ourselves chicken out and go join another church
Yeah.
and let someone else be the one who closed the door, or do we just stick it out and wait for that day where we shut the doors and by the bylaws we sell it off and donate the funds to charity?
I want to go back to what you said about, my father helped build that church, right? Thank you. And that's allowing us to we're not spreading the gospel the way a church is designed to right now. That work that you put in has created value in our church, which is going to allow us to spread the kingdom elsewhere. You see what I'm saying? Like, and yeah, I know you've got the tie to that building, but that work has transferred into value that's given us to spread the gospel even more.
And if you're going to say my family built that church, okay, do we want to say that, okay, these 8 rows of seats and those lights over
Are yours.
and those are yours. No, you invested into lives.
Yeah.
You invested into a gospel. You invested into a preaching and reaching out.
Yeah.
All that went together. You
Can I say? I mean, I'll cut it out if I have to, but I think the number was $4.5 million, and $1 million to buy the land, and $3.5 million to build a brand new church. I don't know the building cost for X amount of square foot that we're going to use, but I imagine that's going to cover the vast majority of it, if not more. We always want to add this and add this and add this, but we're not going into this in debt, right?
Right.
This is going to be...
And prices could go up.
Yeah,
I mean,
things change.
Things change, but as it is, we think we can build a church and open it Easter Sunday, 2022.
Wow.
For $3.5 million. And the land itself, the 5 acres, for $1 million. So that's the idea. We will fundraise heading into it. We will hopefully, sock away some cash and along the way for some cost overruns here and there and the unexpected stuff that comes. But the plan right now is to enter that church Easter weekend, 2022, debt free. So
let me tell you, I look forward to that because as someone who's 100% committed to really, I guess, Brian and his message and what he's doing, I also, like I said, I've been 3 years at a church that I'm going to say turmoil. That's not probably the best description, but like transition, and that almost hides preaching the gospel and serving and living like Christ, right? And so it'll be good to get that in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And I think this was a big step. I think the church voting by 83% margins, overwhelming success. Imagine all the things we talked about, people holding on. That was this many people, and we love them and we want them to be involved. But 83% is a pretty powerful.
And the ones who left, I mean, wherever they find a new church home, God bless them. But there's nothing that's really going to change at Calvary. From that vote to the next week to this week to next week.
Yeah.
We're still preaching the same message, doing the same things. If you don't feel a part of that, we're sorry, but we're moving ahead with basically who we were for a long time now.
Yeah.
And we're just going to move south. We're going to stay in Grand Prairie, and instead of buying air conditioning units, you're going to be putting that into missions and programs and Little League baseball and Little League football and reaching the giving to the community like Christ did, instead of fixing leaky air conditioning systems for literally. I feel like Bon Air is up there once a week. Right. I really do feel like that's a thing. And my wife and I, we didn't talk a lot about it at home. The night before the vote, my one pitch was, she kind of giggled about, well, you don't have my vote yet, and just kind of
nice.
And I said, well, you know what? this isn't a vanity move. It's not that we want a brand new shiny building, that we want this and that. It's to save the church.
Yeah. Survival.
We do this, or we slowly let it die. And as our older members who are more generous givers, as they die off, the church dies a little. And until we give people, it's hard enough to get people in church to begin with in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
But to get them and keep them, there's some challenges, and that's a whole different podcast. But if we're going to attract new members and keep them, some things, not just this aesthetically, but some things need to change.
Yeah. Quickly, I had a lifelong First Baptist Church member on my podcast, a good friend of mine, and First Baptist moved out there off 161, and they're just they're growing their church, they're witnessing, they're doing what the church is supposed to do, and all it took was a move just a little bit south, and it's almost like a blueprint of the right thing to do, and so I think it's going to be all good, and I can't wait till we get there.
Well, anyone, I mean, I could tell when all this first started coming about in 2017, we first started talking about it, and I knew there would be heartache, and I knew there would be disgruntlement and all that, but I just knew deep down that my two young kids, I don't know if this church will be around for them.
Yeah.
I mean, you just know intuitively this place ain't going to last forever. We got to do something.
Give it a good shove. It may fall over.
Yeah.
Keith, thanks, man. This was fun. I think we're over an hour now, and like I said, we could go on a whole other podcast on that alone. So, any sign offs? Any last things you want to talk about?
No, I still do the work for the National Football Foundation and the Future for Football, formerly called Football Matters.
Yeah.
That we had to change the name. Long story, but Football Matters is now Future for Football, and promoting the game and the good things about it. And
uptick in busyness, or have you slowed because of COVID?
Not on that front. I mean, not the work that I do for the Big 12 and for the National Football Foundation. I mean, there's some other work around our place has slowed. It's picking back up, but
because we had a full season. I forget. I mean, the attendance was down, but all the games were played, right? I mean, COVID didn't really affect football.
Well, FCS and Division II, Division III aren't playing. They're going to play in the spring.
Okay. Wow.
And then a lot of high schools had to shut down.
Yeah, Grand Prairie shut down for 3 weeks.
But there are states who did not play.
At all, huh?
At all.
God. Talking about the effects, I mean, it trickles on down to, youth sports. That is our future MLB player who lost a year, or NFL player, MLB player that lost a year of development.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been fun, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'll talk to you soon.
So long.
Bye.